So some of the stats for 2022 and 2023 have come out for financial stability, and it's not great. Supposedly, people are still saying it hasn't fully turned into a recession yet because there's still more savings than there is not. But for the first time in the US history, savings is going down faster than it's going up for the majority of people. Um, Savings is still higher right now than it's ever been in US history, but the money that is saved up is worth less. Also, the top half of earners have, what was it, 1.35 trillion saved up, which is 3 times as much as the bottom half of people. The bottom half of people, on average, have less than 5,500 saved up per family. And that's including families who have nothing. And that's including families who have, you know, 100,000. Like, it's pretty awful. During the pandemic, a bunch of people didn't fully burn their stimulus checks, and they tried to save it up. Well, a ton of that is also disappearing. People who were trying really hard to do the right thing for themselves, maybe they didn't have debt, so they were like, I'm not going to go crazy and spend this. I'm going to try to invest this or put this into like a high yield savings account or something. Yeah, that's all getting burned through. Interest rates are like 5%, but even in a high yield savings account, your interest back on your savings is still going to be like 4 point something, even on a high yield one. So you're still losing money based on like inflation. There's no way around that. The housing costs are just astronomical, and they're record high, like crazy. The really frustrating thing is you look at all these poor people who, during the pandemic, businesses were making record profits and like insane profit margins, and they overhired in the tech industry. Like, just outright, they overhired. Now, all those poor people, they were so excited. They were like, yes, let's go buy a house. Let's get away from the pandemic. Let's go move to the countryside, buy this new house. And then there was a housing frenzy, and all of the properties went up in value like super fast, and it was super hard to get a house. You had to offer like 20K over the asking price, and there was usually like a bidding war and stuff. And these people thought, I'm making 6 figures a year, I'm doing great, this is great. And in actuality, it was a false growth. And businesses, most businesses, I won't say all of them, but a lot of businesses in the United States do not have an emergency fund. Like, you recommend to a person, have enough money that you could run for, 3 to 6 months paying all your expenses. And businesses tend to push themselves right onto the margin. They want to expand and grow, and so they spend all of what they've got trying to do that. And when they suddenly are not earning as much, to keep their profits, record profits, they lay people off. And a lot of people who thought they had an excellent job are getting laid off by the thousands in the tech industry. And these people were people who moved to places with high cost of living because that's where the tech stuff was, and a lot of them like bought a new property, and they don't have an income. When their unemployment runs out, how are they gonna get out of a foreclosure? Like, the job market for tech industry just is not that great. And yet you still see people online swearing that, oh yeah, you can do some website making and back-end work and stuff like that, and you'll do this certificate, get this certificate, and then you can do that online, and you could work remote anywhere and live the dream life. And in actuality, like, there's thousands and thousands of people applying per job application. The faith in the economy right now is not that great. 69% of U.S. citizens, according to polls, believe that the financial situation is not good, and I think it was 53% believe that it's going to get worse, which is the worst view of the U.S. economy from U.S. citizens that we've had since before World War II. After World War II, people felt like consuming was really patriotic. Going and supporting American manufacturing by buying yourself a car. And so cities would actually make laws. Hey, let's encourage cars. Let's encourage, in our zoning and our, regulation and everything, streets and driveways and requirements for when we create new housing. And there was a lot of motivation in US citizens after World War II to show that patriotism by consuming American goods. And America was very big on manufacturing, and things have shifted a lot. America also has for a long, long time been the business standard currency. The dollar has been the business standard, and it technically still is, but there are countries pushing really hard to try to change and be the country providing that standard currency for international business, like the expected currency. And in order to retain being the business standard currency for the international use, we have to have stability, and we just do not have that right now. Americans are hurting, really a lot. At least the bottom half of Americans are hurting a lot as far as trying to keep up with things like housing. The top half are hurting a lot in that they're losing millions of dollars. Well, not all of them, but a decent chunk of them are. It was interesting in the statistics, 45% of people even earning six figures are living paycheck to paycheck. Even earning six figures. That's not as bad as, say, the average African American family in this country. They can only survive for 5 days, on average, on financials. Their money lasts for 5 days, and then they gotta figure something out. So it's not as bad as that. There are definitely marginalized groups in this country when it comes to finances. But the point is, wealthy people have been losing a ton of money, and losing big hunks of money like that might seem different because they're not about to lose their house possibly, but some of them are. It seems like they have an easier time of it. They have more in savings. They have more of a cushion. But people who are way down at the bottom are so used to being at the bottom that they're better at figuring things out in the long run to where they survive. We have a big difference in survival instinct. It's very interesting, the statistics between the bottom chunk of Americans and the lower chunk of Americans. Basically, if you're not in the top 15% of Americans as far as earning goes, financial earning goes, your income, your wage, you're not doing that great. There's people who, think that they hit $1 million and that they're awesome and they're gonna do great. And there's actual millionaires who are suffering. There's people who have multiple millions who are suffering and struggling. I just saw a story about a woman who started a restaurant, and she put 1 point something, I think it was 1.2 or 1.3 mil into the restaurant. It did great for 2 months, and then the pandemic hit, and she's been in the red ever since, trying to recover from that. And she's not in the red by a lot, and she does have some savings still, but it's every single month she's losing money, and eventually that has to stop. And if it doesn't eventually stop, then she not only won't be a millionaire anymore, but she won't even be able to take care of her kids. And she has to try to live at a lower standard if she wants that to stop. And she's so used to living at a certain standard that that's an impossibility to her. That's not even fathomable to her. And it's like there's a lot of just inability to understand what survival mode looks like when it comes to finances for a lot of people who are losing millions of dollars, like, or hundreds of thousands of dollars even. And for the people who, man, they had a nice job, you know, and they thought that job would last, there's a bunch of them that unfortunately their unemployment is only going to last for 6 months, and they're struggling to find work. Like, they're applying for like 30 to 100 jobs a day. And I think it was the CEO of Indeed flat out said that 80% of resumes don't even get seen by an actual person. They get seen by an algorithm. And so there's certain words that the algorithm's looking for, and if those words aren't in the resume, a real actual live person never even sees it. And there's such a giant competitiveness, a congestion right now of people trying to get the jobs that you, even if you can get to like an interview, you have so much competition. And so there's a lot of struggle. The statistics that have come out for 2022 and 2023 are just really, really telling. A lot of people are filled with distrust toward the market in general. And I can't necessarily blame them. I mean, things aren't exactly looking that amazing at the moment. Bank trust is at an all-time low. And 95.5% of US citizens use banking. And banking trust is still at an all-time low, and people are actually would rather have their cash pulled out of the banks and deal with the fact that the cash is losing value because of inflation rather than leave the money in with the bank. Like, it's not that great. But you know what? It's gonna get better. There's been a period of time, and you can look at it on graphs, you can look at it on statistics, you can go watch a documentary, you can go read about it. There's been a period of time for at least a decade here where things have been trending pretty much forward. There's been a couple of hiccups for sure, you know, but the biggest thing is that things have been mostly full on bull market, which means forward. And it didn't used to be this long of a bull market. It used to be that there were more fluctuations in the economy, and that there were ups and downs, and that sometimes it'd be a bull market where things are going forward, and sometimes it'd be a bear market where things are pulling back. And the ups and downs are just normal parts of life, even besides finances. Like, finances having ups and downs is normal because life having ups and downs is normal. So try to take it with a grain of salt and recognize that this is temporary. This is not forever. This is not, oh, everything's collapsing. It's the whole world market's about to collapse. Everybody's hurting, at least some, because the US is the holder of the dollar, and the dollar is the business currency. Other, you know, businesses in other places in other countries followed a lot of models that were presented and put forward from US companies that are just structurally not that sound, because again, they're constantly in a push mode, and they aren't saving anything for, hey, here's a crisis or here's something coming up. They spend way too much, and even with all the subsidies they get, they still are spending too much. So it's really important to learn from this. Instead of treating it like this is the end of the world, treat it like I'm gonna learn from everybody else's mistakes to try to avoid my own mistakes. Because you don't get taught about finances and investing and stuff in like school, or at least I sure didn't when I was in school. Although, to be fair, I was never in a school for more than 2 years at a time. I had serious housing insecurity growing up, so maybe I'm not the best example for that in particular. But the majority of people I know also did not learn about finances in school. It's just not like you go in during 8th grade and you're like, hey, here's all the stuff I'm learning, and cool, also here's this information about banking, budgeting, finances, investing, retirement funds, all of this stuff. And statistically, Americans like language to be around an 8th grade level. Like, that's what they prefer for learning. They don't necessarily always retain as well when you go above that. That's statistical. So, learning to just look for resources that are verified, and you can find multiple sources going back to that same resource, and trying to learn as much as you can from a place of analytical and logical and rational standing, and trying as hard as you can to recognize that a lot of our behavior with money is emotional, and money is emotional not just for us as individuals, but a lot of people who run businesses make a lot of emotional mistakes. And it really, really sucks, the people who are hurting and the people who are getting hurt. Thankfully, the majority of people who are in the lower brackets did not spend all of their stimulus check right away. Only 17% did. So the majority of people who are in the lower brackets, good job. You knew the hammer was coming. That shows survival instinct. Be proud of that. Recognize that this is temporary, that you are world smart even if you're not financially educated, that you have enough experience of enough hard things that you recognize, I might not know everything about money, but I know I need to pull back, and I know I need to, like, protect myself. And that instinct can get you a long way when it comes to money. Saving it all is better than not saving, even if you're not sure exactly what you're doing with it. And hopefully, I'm gonna just keep trying to make more videos that hopefully can help people, because I've had the weird luxury of being around a lot of multimillionaires, but also living in abject poverty. And I've been able to see both sides of finances, as it were, and haven't been around billionaires. I can say not that. The highest was like 100 mil, somewhere around there. But I'm just saying, I've had this weird, unique perspective of seeing both ends of it, both directions, as it were, and I just really, really want the people who are earning lower, the bottom half, I want them to do better. I see a lot of YouTube videos that are aimed at getting people to be the upper half. I literally just want to reach out to the people who are in the bottom half, because your pain is not pointless, and you are not worthless, and you are trying, and you're doing the best you can, and you might not be fully educated in what you're doing. I don't know who said it. Someone said it. It might have been Warren Buffett or something. But someone said, you know, the most expensive thing that we ever encounter in life is lack of knowledge. So just be aware that the more you're learning, the better you're doing already. You're already doing better. Just learning and growing and trying to understand things and put them into practice. The statistics might be bleak right now, like the math might not be that great, the odds of negative occurrences might be kind of high right now, but there are things you can do to try to help it get around it. And I did make a video on that, but I'll keep making more. I really, really want the average person, the lower half of Americans, to be able to survive and weather through, because I've weathered through some horrible crap, and I know it's possible. I know it is. It's so possible if we can just help each other. Today, I was just sitting at a bus stop waiting to pick someone up from the bus stop, and someone was riding their bike, and this literally happened right in front of me. They went over one of those little reflector bump things that was on the road right in front of me. Like, nobody hit them, they didn't hit something, they just went over a little bump, and they came down so hard on the other side, their whole arm just shattered. like broke from the elbow down. It turned into looking like it was made out of like rubber. It was like, and the person was just screaming like in pain. And I was like, dude, I'm calling 911. And I just happened to be sitting there. If I had not been sitting there, what would this guy have done? Like he was falling over to the side, just holding his whole arm, cradling it like he was in so much pain. And someone happened to be there to help. And I just want us all to be there to help. Like, in the pandemic, we were kind of like, keep your distance, stay away or whatever. And I feel like, to a certain degree, for illness sake, don't go like licking people, that you don't know in the street. But I'm saying we can still reach out a helping hand. We can still help each other. Like, we did a little bit too much social distancing. We need to become communities again. All of us poor people, all of us people who are in the bottom half, because that's how we used to survive. We used to be villages that helped raise each other. We used to be communities and groups, and maybe we can't do that as much physically and in person, so I'm trying to do that in some sort of a way virtually, because we can help each other. We all have experiences that we can chip into the pile of knowledge that we can get and we can use and we can get through, and it's temporary. This is not permanent. Just keep telling yourself, take a deep breath. This is temporary.